All right. I am so excited. All right. So here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the You-Est podcast. This is Julie Reisler. I am your host, and I am so honored and grateful and excited to have such a phenomenal guest on the show today. You are going to fall in love with Patricia. Patricia Moreno is the founder of Spiritual Fitness. As she rose up the ranks to star status in the fitness industry, Patricia found herself trapped in a vicious cycle of body consciousness, resorting to extreme exercise and dieting to maintain her appearance. She thought, here I am doing all of these crazy things behind the scenes and preaching exercise and diet, and it's not working for me. Recognizing at rock bottom that there must be millions of people suffering just like her and thinking it was their fault, Moreno realized she wanted to find a way to help people train the body as a vehicle, not just as an ornament. Love that. Her mission to reshape the fitness industry led her to create the intenSati method, the first program to combine positive affirmations with physical training, and the concept of spiritual fitness. Moreno knows how crucial it is to consider the power of mind, heart, and spirit in our workouts, because the body is going to change shape over our lifetime, and our relationship to it needs to evolve as well. Thousands of instructors have trained with Patricia to learn and teach intenSati, and her revolutionary approach, which has elevated her to the realm of internationally renowned fitness and wellness experts, earning acclaim from celebrities and media attention from the Oprah Magazine, Vogue, Shape, Well and Good, The Today Show, and Good Morning America. So I want to say also, someone who's gotten to know Patricia a little bit, you are a freaking beautiful badass who has some amazing awesomeness to share. I'm so honored to have you today. Welcome.
I'm super psyched to be here and to be able to hang with you and just talk about this. It's very important.
Absolutely. And by the way, I hope I did not say your name. I should have asked before, but if I didn't say it right, you'll say it again. Name and intenSati.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get to it. So, I am curious because I heard you speak at the Passion Summit. I really looked into a lot of what you taught, and I resonated with this whole idea of coupling positive affirmations and changing the way that we really feel about our bodies and talk to our bodies. And I'm just I'm wondering, I know it's a story that that you've been willing to share, maybe just a little bit about kind of how you got to where you are today. What's helped you to become your You-Est you?
Yeah, of course. I always start when I was 8 years old and my mom put me on a diet. And I remember the moment that they weighed me. My mom and dad came to the bathroom and they weighed me. And it's just like the fear in their eyes just put me in a trance immediately. I weighed 130 pounds and they freaked out. And I really got in that moment that it was not okay to be me. And if this body didn't change, I was not going to be lovable. And so I call that the trance, being put under the trance, the spell of fat phobia, unworthiness, self-objectification, all of these things that, we accumulate. We're not born this way. We're not born worried about our body. We're not born feeling unlovable. And we inherit that. We get it from culture, messages, expectations, and then it becomes very difficult to really separate what other people think of us, our fear of what other people think of us, and who we truly are. And so I got into the fitness industry. It went very, very well. I just became very popular very fast because I felt like exercise was medicine for me. I felt like exercise gave me a voice. It was how I used my body. I loved moving my body. I loved being in my body. I felt free. I felt alive. My body started to change. I started to get love and applause from it. And I really got that. Okay, as my body changes, I get more popular, I get more lovable. And what happened was it turned into an extreme anxiety and fear for me because, of course, you're never thin enough and you could lose it at any second. And it was always out of fear that I was chasing this ideal that, I'm very tall and I've never been small, but I was always chasing this thin ideal. And even when I got to super, super thin, I did aerobics competitions and, short shorts and bra top and ripped body. I still was absolutely more terrified than ever that I was going to lose this status. And I became bulimic. I became an over-exerciser. I did extreme diets. I just was caught in this trap of objectifying myself and feeling that my body was my social currency and that it was all I had to gain attention and connection and love. And I hit rock bottom when I was doing a TV show, and my producer, and the show was doing great. I was getting fan mail, people were loving it. And the producer called me into the office and said, "You're gaining too much weight." And that, to me, talk about shame spiral, talk about the lowest of the low. And one, it was because I did this on national TV. It wasn't just in New York City in my little packed classes of 60 people, 100 people. It was now the world. It was like being seen naked in front of the world. And I found myself going to buy crystal meth as a diet aid. So if you don't know what crystal meth is, it's extremely addictive drug, and you don't eat for days, amongst many other things. And I just thought, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm going to go back on the diet and exercise treadmill, and I'm going to follow these rules and get myself back into what I think the world wants to see in order to be lovable. And here I am, I'm selling diet and exercise, and I'm deceiving myself and I'm deceiving the world because I can exercise up to 8 hours a day. Trust me, I was third in the nation in national aerobics competition. There's not a lot of people that had a lot more endurance, strength, or flexibility than me, or enough like power to be able to move my body in this way. So if I'm not winning, and I've been dieting since I'm 8 years old, if I'm not winning, how could anybody? And then I started thinking of the statistics that 1/10 of 1% of people that go on a diet actually lose it and keep it off. That people start and stop diets 6, 7, 8 times a year. That's like enrolling in a college, getting out, re-enrolling, getting out, re-enrolling 8 or 9 times a year. If that was happening in schools, we would be up in arms. It would be front page news. And yet what happens is, instead, the diet industry, the beauty industry says, don't be fat. It's disgusting. It's horrible. It's unhealthy. There's nothing worth feeding this extreme fat phobia that my parents had, that we all have. And this fat phobia that gets fed to us so that we buy the diet and we buy the book and we buy the exercise program because there's so much fear. So instead of saying, you know what, this recipe doesn't work, what do? I am not good enough. They're saying this diet's supposed to give me a bikini body in 15 days and I can't stick to it. Something's wrong with me. They say that buying this cream is going to remove that cellulite or wrinkles and it's not working for me. So I'm buying the shame. I'm a consumer of shame. We all are. And I was part of that puzzle. And it was this moment, I call it a moment of grace, where I realized that my pain wasn't just my pain, but it was millions of people's pain. And that I wasn't the only one. And that I was selling this false idea. And I could either go back or I could move forward and find another way. And somehow, some reason, by some powerful miracle, I just was able to see what was happening. And I decided there was not a chance in hell I was going back to be part of that selling and deceiving, but I was going to find a way to actually help people break free from these cycles. And it took me a while. I really went probably about 2 years of researching and studying and trying to understand at first I was looking for the answer of how do we create sustainable change? And I was still in the mindset of how do we lose the weight and keep it off, right? So I was looking for that answer, but then it wasn't long after that I realized that's not even the answer. That's not the answer. Losing the weight and keeping it off and shaming and disciplining yourself more is not the answer. The answer is really, how do I see myself as more than a body? How do I see my value as more than my weight? How do I realize that my social currency is not how I look, but that I am more than beautiful? And my goal in life is more than to be in a body that other people want to have. And it took time, man. It took a lot of time. But some of the things that I realized was self-love is actually the only job that we need to really, really work on. And we've got to really look at all of these messages and expectations that we've accumulated as consumers of shame and guilt and self-loathing, and break free from those old self-concepts of I'm not enough, something's wrong with me, I'm not okay unless I look a certain way, and mostly for women, right? And start to find a way to what I call be spiritually fit, see myself body, mind, and spirit, and more than a body, and use compassion instead of punishment, be kinder instead of harder, and learn to really figure out and find out, what does self-love look like? How do I do it? How do I be it? And that's what I've just devoted all the last 15 years to, is figuring out how do we integrate these teachings. All of us have read the books. How many of us have not read the books on personal empowerment, on resilience, on self-love, on spirituality, on manifesting your best life, all the books that are out there? But how do we go from information to integration? And that became really what I consider my role, is how do we integrate all of these great teachings from great teachers and science and positive psychology and NLP and neuroscience that says, yes, you can change. Yes, you can change your brain. Yes, you can rewrite your self-concept. Yes, you can wake up from this trance. It is possible, but it's not a number on a scale, and it's not from your diet. It's from an internal journey of being fed up and turning up this desire to be free from seeing ourselves as just a body to be looked at and for other people's viewing pleasure, and to see ourselves as more so we can be more.
Wow.
That's a lot, I know.
No, it's fantastic. There's a lot, so much richness in there. And I think, number one, I resonate it's so interesting to hear as another female who, I share in my story. At 10, I was told I was overweight. My mom took me to a doctor who was obese and told me I had to starve myself. She said, "Oh, you're fine. Just starve yourself for 2 weeks and you'll be fine." And yeah, no, really. It's one of my crazy story. My mom was crazy about, not crazy. She wanted me to, I danced, and she thought I was heavier. She was heavy as a little girl, and she was worried and took me to this doctor, yep. And I'll never forget, he was probably up 400 pounds. And he said, "Julie," he said, "Yep, you're a little overweight. So just starve yourself for 2 weeks." And, it reminded me of your 8-year-old. I was 10, and that for me was, I remember thinking, oh, I knew it. Something's not right. I knew it. And it's funny, like, even, I danced, and I remember being told, "You're too big to be a dancer." This teacher was trying to be nice to me and save me, I guess. And it was, horrifying. And my God, I relate a lot to your story, and using food and abusing food. And then what I got too is, like, it's this trance, like you said, that we think the outer is the most important thing. And, similar, getting, accolades. And when I did get in great shape after doing the freshman 50, I remember coming back, and it was like a completely different experience. And that fed this whole, okay, I got to look a certain way for a lot of time. Until I realized that frickin' doesn't matter. It's the internal work. And I love what you said about, we're consumers of shame. I feel like I lived on the shame train. I mean, really lived on it. Probably could have been right there with you in seat number 2,
Yep.
on the train.
Yeah. And I think I actually, Brene Brown says it's a universal. We all experience shame.
Yeah.
Everybody. It's a universal emotion, and it really comes from the outside. And so we all experience it. It's like how it's recognizing it and becoming more resilient to it.
Yeah, for sure.
And that our pain, the pain that you and I have felt, and that I'm sure everybody listening at some point, their story may be different, but has felt not good enough. That creates more resilience, actually. And that's what's super powerful to know, is like, we can't be resistant to it, but we can become resilient. And as deep as we've gone in our pain, that's as high as we can go with our love. Like, we can do it, and it's possible.
I love what you just said. I agree. And I relate and resonate with the passion you said to taking information and integrating it. And I think that's the piece. Like, as you said, we can read all these books and they're good books, but it's like, okay, it's just like diets don't work. Reading alone doesn't work, and so I so resonate, and I love what you've created. It touched me, and it's something, I know I have words all over my mirror. My mom got into a 12-step program with food early on in my life. So I had that going
that's
on.
So good.
Which is good, but it's interesting.
I know.
Middle of the night eating.
It's a lot.
It was crazy. But she had me look in the mirror. She did the whole Louise Hay, the Saturday Night Live, like, look in the mirror and hug yourself. And I remember this was after the doctor thing later in life. And I was like, this is so wacko, but I'll tell you something. I started to learn, like, there's actually something to that. Looking in the mirror, saying kind words, having those words, saying them to your body. And I know that's something, maybe just to say more, like how you've learned to infuse that, what you do with adding that spiritual component to fitness, because I will say, like, you moving is crucial for my feeling grounded. And it doesn't have to be crazy fitness, like 5 hours of fitness. It could just be
no, God, no.
30 minutes, 20 minutes, 45.
It can literally, you know what the number is? You know what the magic number is?
Yeah.
68 seconds.
All right. So just talking about with intenSati, how you really created this way to infuse what you're saying with your body and kind of combining that, the spiritual fitness piece. I don't know. I'd love to hear more about that, like sharing how you came up with it, what you've learned, how it works, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, I think it's really important, because I think that for me, when I found exercise, it was really revolutionary, because I was so not in my body. I was shy, couldn't speak. I wanted to be a dancer and I was too fat. And that's according to in my mind, right? And then I felt movement. It was like I was in my body. I was present. I was alive. It felt amazing. But as I got a little bit older, because that was like when I was 15. I started teaching when I was 17.
Oh, wow.
And I became super popular very fast. And when I started to really like get even more crazy, like, oh my gosh, I have to be thinner. I have to be thinner. I have to be thinner. What will they think? I have to be best. I have to be the best. I have to be the best. And I started to realize that what the problem was not just the body. The problem was my self-concept, right? So I always thought of myself. So your self-concept is anything after I am. It's everything you believe to be true about you. And I went to this retreat at one point, and there was Deepak Chopra was there. It was in Fiji, and we were learning. It was like some wellness retreat. And what he was talking about, he was saying, we all live true to our self-concept. Like there's just no way you can change your life without changing the concept of yourself. And a lot of teachers teach this. But this was the first time I heard this. And he said, your self-concept is everything you say after the words I am. And it's like a magnet, right? Whatever you believe, no matter how much you think you change, you'll always come back to what you really believe is true about you. And I was in the shower and I'm doing my thing. And I just it was like this vision of me going, I'm so fat, I have to go to the gym. I'm so fat, I have to run. I'm so fat, I have to diet. I'm so fat. And I remembered being in competition and getting to the point where, and trust me, I got to this point with drugs and everything that was not good. But I went from 212 pounds to 140 pounds.
Wow.
And 140 pounds was like the goal. Like I was ripped. You could see my abs. There was, you know, blah, blah, blah. The idea of like perfection. And I remember just being like devastated being at this weight, because I'm like, the day after competition, I know I'm going to balloon back because I can't sustain this. And I remembered that. And I thought, that was that feeling. That was that feeling, like holding on to the edge of a cliff just for another second. Can I hold this number just for another moment, just at least till because my self-concept was I am fat.
Mm.
And I understood what he was talking about, because it's like, you just can't hold it that long. You can't fake it that long. The world knows who you really are. And you know who you really are. You're fat. And fat is disgusting, right? And so it was just like everything in me. And then, of course, when you get thin to like the ideal and then you gain weight, talk about add it on a million times, because not only did you get there, now you can't stay there. And everybody saw you get there. And now then I would gain like 20 pounds, which was where my body would naturally go.
Yeah.
And the guilt and the shame of not being able to hold that number was torture. But when he said that, that gave me a little bit, I thought, oh my gosh. So in order to really create sustainable change, we've got to change our self-concept. And he was teaching self-concept is changeable. It's changeable. You have to use new language. You have to question your beliefs. And I love this. A belief is something that you don't question, right? So as soon as you question a belief, you've now put a hole in it. So if I question, is my worthiness really my weight? Is really my value just how I look? Is that really my social currency? So you start to question, you start to put a hole in it, you start to have critical thinking, you start to self-reflect, all of these things, which was what I got from that one piece. But I said, but that's not enough. That still doesn't tell me, how do we do this? And then I was in a Tony Robbins seminar, and he was talking about, you know, we learn to activate, he called it peak performance state of being, right? Have you done Tony Robbins stuff?
It's so funny. He did a one day in the DC area. And I read and listened to a lot of his stuff, but I got a really darn good taste of it. Yeah. I know him, of his stuff
so
well.
He was talking about this peak performance triangle, and he was saying how, if you want to change, if you want to lose weight, you don't just force the actions. You get into a state. And he was talking about states of courage, states of love, states of confidence, and that you can activate a state. So that really piqued my interest, because he says a state is activated, a state of being, how you're feeling is activated by what you're focusing on, your language, and your physiology. So if you're feeling down and you're feeling unhappy, your posture is usually like rounded, your face is down, just throwing your shoulders back, just putting a smile on your face, just walking with energy and saying things differently and focusing on different things. That'll activate. You want to feel courageous, you have to wait. You want to feel more confident, you have to wait. You throw your shoulders back, you move, you speak differently, you call it up, you evoke it, you pull it up from inside of you. And I was like, yes, 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 yes. Something's here, something's here, something's here. And I could feel like the power of what he was talking about was super important and valuable. And then we were out on a beach, and we were all marching, and we're all marching this affirmation. All I need is within me now. All I need is within me now. All I need is within me now. And there's hundreds of us, and it's almost nighttime, and I was alone. I didn't have any friends with me, but I was just like saying this affirmation, and literally like lightning struck, and I stopped dead in my tracks, and I was like, this is it. I have chills now. This is it. Oh my God. I'm going to merge my expertise in fitness, movement of the body, with affirmations. Will become incantations. He calls them incantations, right? The shift from affirmation is just like, I am enough, 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 I am. Okay, I said that 10 times. That's amazing. But he's like, you have to embody it. Whatever you're saying, you have to embody it. And I thought, that's it. That's it. This is how we rewrite our self-concept. If our self-concept is everything after we say after I am, it's very difficult to do this a number and enough times to change the neural pathways in the brain. You have to do it with emotion, because it's the emotion that triggers the experience, that synchronizes mind and body, and that in a real time, real present experience, you have a feeling, and feeling is the language. Feeling is the language of change. And so when you consciously evoke a feeling of love for no reason at all, not because you lost the weight, but just because it's a choice, it's an intention, it's a decision that you make, that love is not the prize for losing the weight. Feeling the love is what you can do, no matter what you weigh, no matter how much money you have, no matter what the circumstances are. And that's why I created intenSati, Sati meaning mindfulness. So I think of Sati as that space between stimulus and response, where our life is. That space between stimulus and response where we have the choice, where we're not reacting, where we're not just doing the same habitual things over and over again. And intent comes from the word intention. So being mindful of your intention is to feel a certain way. It's not to have a certain thing. We want to lose the weight because we have been trained that if we lose the weight, we will be lovable, that if we look the right way, that we'll have value. And we're grasping for something outside to fill this hole. We've got to fill the hole ourselves. We have to be our own hero. We can't wait for somebody to save us. There's nobody, because there's nobody that can ever give us what we need from ourselves. And so intention is keeping your awareness on the intention that is what you want to feel, not what you want to have. So if you want to feel healthy, it's feeling whole, feeling healthy on the inside so that the health will come. It's feeling, if you want that job because you want to feel empowered, it's feeling empowered so that those opportunities will show up for you. If you want to feel loved, it's not waiting for the number on the scale or the date or that somebody to tell you you're lovable. It's actually deciding you're lovable, awakening that feeling for no reason at all, independent of your circumstances, so that you attract and that you align and that the world will respond to you to confirm what you affirm in yourself. And so how do we do this? Of course, there's books that give us the information. How do we integrate it? We have to rewire our brain. We have to change our personality. There's a teacher called Dr. Joe Dispenza. It's called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. His line, killer. His line is everything. You cannot create a new personal reality with the same personality. You have to change your personality if you want to change your personal reality. How do you change your personality? It's the idea of awakening. So if I awaken self-love more often, more than I'm used to, it changes my brain. It creates new nerve cells, fire and wire in new ways in my brain, creates new pathways. If I reinforce that enough times, that state that I've awakened will become a new trait, a new personality trait. So if I want a new reality, I have to change my personality, not my outside world, not the number on the scale, my personality. If I want to have more love in my life, I have to be more loving. If I want to feel more confident, I have to feel more confident, regardless of my circumstances. And so I wanted to create a practice to integrate this information, to integrate the science, to integrate spirituality, to integrate the mental, physical, and spiritual training, to align ourselves and train ourselves as a whole being, not as my biceps or not as my butt. I don't want to just train in my biceps. I want to train my being. I want to train my whole self, and to awaken from this trance that somebody has to deem me lovable, worthy enough, or good enough. I have to deem myself that. And without a practice, without consistent training, this is relatively impossible. So the practice of intenSati is the practice of taking your power back, exercising your power to choose your own self-concept and to deem yourself enough, no matter what anybody else says. It helps you break the trance.
Wow. All right, sister, that was pretty freaking awesome.
That's a lot. I know.
No, it's amazing. I mean, this is my own story as well. And I'm listening to and thinking people listening, and I couldn't agree more. It is an internal shift. It's a cataclysmic internal change in how you, literally what I'm hearing you say, and it's interesting, I've had this experience myself where I had to redo the inner world, because the outer world, like you said, it's not our butt or biceps. It's never, I found, like you're saying, never is it. It's nice to hear nice things, and that's great. And that's not sustainable. That's not where it comes from. It comes from within. And I love what you said. This is something I practice. And for those listening, it's really, I believe this is true. It's usually not it's not the thing that I want, but the thing you want. It's what you want to feel. So I love that, like feeling empowered and then adding your movement with it. It's just brilliant. It's brilliant. And I like actually have seen this shift my life and others. And it's not, I think back to what you said about being in a trance. I think our society, the world, you see all these images and photos. I mean, if you're on social media, it's hard to miss it, and we think it's an outer thing. And I know you and I were talking even earlier about motherhood and parenting, and that's a whole other conversation, like how that seems. I was like, shoot, I want to know how you do that, because I got 2 little ones too. And it's like back to what you said, it's a way of being is what you're changing. It's a way of being. So versus you saying, thinking you're fat all the time, even when you were at your 140, and I know you're a tall woman, that's 140 is like nothing. And thinking that inner, you were marking your worth by the number, to totally transforming, to realizing it's all about inner love. And if you want more love and you want more, you got to be that first. I think it's extraordinary what you've done.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's really, really important, because it's really hard to wake up and understand that these messages are not true. And you have to be a critical thinker.
Yeah.
You have to really start to understand what's happening for it to actually change. I really feel that we are all living with such fear, so much fear of not being good enough, so much fear of being fat. Like the fear of fat is absolutely mind-blowing. And I feel it. I still feel it every single day. It doesn't go away, but I can feel it. I can catch it. I could be like, oh boy, just got triggered. There it is again. All of that. And it takes the work of I like to call it a warrior.
Yeah.
Like a worthiness warrior, because it really takes that you wake up this level of power and really get that it's all a lie that we're buying into. And if you're not pissed off that you've bought into all of this, get pissed off, because don't sell your life anymore. Don't hide in a shell anymore. It's time to wake up. And when you're talking about kids, I have 3 girls. I have twins that are 6 and a 7-year-old. And I was reading Brene Brown's work, and she was saying, it's impossible to shield our kids from these messages. It's like asking them to inhale and never exhale. It's just impossible. So the only thing that we can do is help them build resilience, because you can't build resistance to it. We all feel it. We all experience it. We all deal with it. But when you wake up to it and you start to become critical thinkers, you start to notice it's happening, you recognize it's happening, that builds resilience. And she says community, courage, and compassion are the 3 things that build that resilience. And so as a mom, all I can think of is that's what I can do for them. Help them see that it's happening. Help them understand the messages. You see that's photoshopped. You see that's not real. You see you're more than your body. Whatever that is that I'm doing for myself. And really help them understand what shame is, what feelings of unworthiness are, and help them become mindful of when they get triggered, of when they go down in a spiral, because it's awareness, it's sati, it's that space between stimulus and response. How do we become more present? How do we talk back to it? How do we really stay in our power and refuse to be put back in those trances? And
Mm.
so for my girls, wow, I have to admit, I'm freaking scared to death for them. I really, really am. And I'm working on not passing on that fear. I really am. And I think that the more I heal, which, you know, again, I think I can heal fully, but I don't think, again, I can be resistant to it.
Yeah.
And open conversations, you know, open conversations. And I don't know what else, really.
Yeah. Well, I'm sitting here like, this is such a deeper conversation. And I think anyone listening, even if you have boys, I have a boy and I have a daughter, but I mean, obviously, especially with girls, this whole thing you were talking about, really having this belief about fat. It's interesting. I don't know the history of how that got started, but I think, you know, it's a lie, like you said. And so you can't exhale and only inhale. I think that's a brilliant way to say that. So it's, you know, I don't want to, like you, say that doesn't exist. I mean, they're going to see photos and they're going to experience life. And so I love what you said about how do you be resilient. And I'm curious because I look at you and I've heard you speak. And it's amazing to me that you might even, of course, we're human. Of course, you're going to have moments where you still struggle or feel these feelings around worthiness or fat or whatever it is that's coming up for you. How do you handle that? Because I think for those listening who are not as experienced, you know, I think it's helpful to hear like, yep, here's somebody. I know for me too, I still struggle with that sometimes, but this is something I know you do and have done for years and years and years.
Listen, here's the thing. It happens every day. Like I am only recently, I say the last 2 years, listen, I wrote a freaking book called Thinner Peace. So I have not been out of this woods very long. And it's awareness, right? It's awareness. So yesterday, my daughter, one of my 5-year-old, one of the twins, a 6-year-old, was walking out the door, and I had 2 friends over. They were taking them out to go do like a playground or something. And my 6-year-old looks at me and says, "Mommy, your butt's fatter."
Oh God.
And can you imagine? Like my friends are there. Everybody's there. It just was like, boom, whack. Like,
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And I said, you know what, my love? It is. It is. It is. Like, it is. And I really thought, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? First of all, I had to like take a second.
Yeah.
I could cry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it just goes boom.
Yeah.
And everything comes up. But here's what you got to do. You got to know what you got to do. You got to cry. I always cry. Crying is my first relief. And you got to be able to know what triggers you. Someone calls me fat. That's a real trigger.
Yeah.
Even if it's my 6-year-old. And they go, wow, that hurt. That hurt. And that's old stuff. That's old pain. That's okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I did the right thing in the moment, but I said, you know, Stella, that hurt my feelings. And looking back, I actually don't think that was the best thing to do, because I think that I don't know. I really don't know. Because then my friend said, you know, in the car, she says, "Mommy's so skinny." I call her skinny lady. So, you know, I'm like, then now add on more guilt, right? Now, like, if I'm not careful, so then I add on the guilt of like, now I'm ruining my kids. Like, the spiral is fast and it's furious. And what my work to do is you got to know what your triggers are. Yeah. You've got to know what they are. So the main ones that people have, that we all have, and we all have different ones: appearance, body, motherhood, money, age, health, mental health, physical health. I think those are the main ones that Brene Brown talks about. We've got to know what they are. And then we have to know what it is we need. What's the best way for us to handle it? I am such a crier. As you see, I can cry at the drop of a hat. Part of that I do from practice, because instead of suppressing,
yeah, it's beautiful.
Repressing, I just let it come. And if I'm embarrassed that I cry in front of you guys, that's part of the problem too. So
right.
I just let that happen and let that be a real opportunity for us to share a real moment. And so you have to know, what do you need? Like, some of us need to retreat. Some of us need to hide. Some of us need to call a friend. Some of us need to journal. Some of us need to take a moment. But the key is, don't disappear and disconnect, because the very thing that shame loves is secrecy and silence. And if we continue to like toughen up and button up and I'm okay, we breed it more. Yeah, we breed it more, because then we're ashamed of feeling the shame that we shouldn't have felt that. So it's that's why I call freaking warrior work, man, because the courage, you have to be courageous and tenderhearted. You have to be courageous, but you also have to find compassion and kindness. We all punish ourselves. We all just torture ourselves. And so we've got to really stay present and kind and compassionate. And I might have to take a moment, because there's a guy at the door.
Oh, it's all good. Go for it.
Hang on.
Awesome. So you were first of all, thank you for so vulnerably and so authentically showing what it's like to have feelings in the moment and be okay with them. I know it took me years and years to cry, and I think it's such a release, and just kudos to you. It is spiritual. It is warrior work to do that and to be really present and say, yeah, that did hurt, and to let that come through. So.
Yeah. And I think if you guys, the listeners, take anything away, it's like the key. I just want to give one tool. Can I give one quick tool?
Yes, please.
Everything is about getting present. Everything is like, you got to feel the trigger. You got to feel what our reaction is. Go eat. Our reaction is blame, criticize, something happens and we feel tender. We tend to the monster comes out, right? And we give it away. We kind of try to eject the feelings. But when you're present, that's why the sati part of this is just everything is I'm going to give you a tool that I use. I give to everybody. I learned it from Tara Brach. I was a Buddhist meditation teacher, but it's about mindfulness. So here's the tool. That's the takeaway. That is everything. It's called RAIN. R. Recognize it. Woo! That hurt. Recognize it. Shame, pain, sad, angry, whatever. Then I just want to highlight something, because when my daughter said, your butt's fat, what happened? Boom, fight, freeze. Like the trauma was just like everything came up. So it hijacks your brain. But as soon as you say shame, fear, pain, even Brene Brown says pain. What that does is it wakes up the frontal lobe. And now you're using a different part of the brain. So it interrupts the stress response. You got to interrupt the stress response, because it hijacks you, because you don't want to eat anything. You don't want to do anything. You don't want to say anything. You don't want to do anything. You want to just take care of yourself. Okay. So that's it. R, recognize it. A, just allow it to be there. Just allow it to be there. Make space for it. Feel it. Look at it. And then I, investigate it. Ooh, it makes my stomach turn. It makes my jaw tight. It makes my pit of my stomach hurts. I feel the tears just wanting to like flood my entire body. So you get into the body experience of it, not the story of it. How dare she? I can't believe she did that. And what did no story. Investigating what that emotion feels like in your body. Tight, scared, whatever. So then you go to N, which is nourish. Nourish. It's okay. Maybe hand on the heart, maybe hand on the face, maybe reach out for a friend, maybe journal, maybe get in bed under the covers and cry, maybe a shower, maybe a workout, whatever you need. But you say, what do I need? What do I need right now? What would be helpful right now? So it's all self-love, self-awareness, recognizing, not hiding, suppressing, go deeper in the trance. It's like warrior wakes up and says, I've got this. I can handle this. So it's courageous, but it's tender-hearted, because our normal reaction is, I don't want to feel.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel. I don't want to feel. I can't handle it. You got to remember, you are not freaking fragile. You are not fragile. You are not fragile. And as soon as we say, I can't handle it, I can't handle it, you say, no, I am not fragile. I am not fragile. I can feel this fear. I can feel this old trance. I feel it, because it's that nourishing that heals it. It starts to create the new neural pathways that connects mind and body, that moves you into that warrior state where you go, it's okay. It's okay. It's all just a lie. Whoo, it's intense.
That was awesome. Patricia, people are, where can we find you? Those that want to get into anything you're doing, intenSati, what's the best place to find all of the goodness? I mean, you're just awesome. I want to make sure people have that.
Thank you. And thank you for having this conversation, because I think it's just really healing and really important. PatriciaMoreno.com is the website. But if you want to know more about what's coming up, which I'm going to tell you a little bit about, but it's launching in January, /365, patriciamoreno.com/365. What that is in January, we're going to kick off a year training of integrating. It's integration, man. It's the real deal. And it's a combination of study where you're going to learn the neuroscience. You're going to learn the latest research on who we are as human beings. We need to know this because it gives us strength, but it's not that easy. So what I did was I read 3 or 4 books a month, and I've consolidated all of the key elements into podcasts so that you read the books or you don't read the books, it doesn't matter, but it lays the groundwork for each month. And then I've created practices that integrates what those teachers say is the best way to integrate this message. You know, you read a book and at the back it says, do this. And you're like, yeah. Or you think about it for like a day and then you forget and you don't know how. So what I do is I create practices, morning rituals, morning practices that combine mindfulness, affirmations, intentions, flooding your body with positive emotions. This is how you change your personality. That's based on the work of Joe Dispenza. Changing your personality, but it's got to be consistent. It's got to be practices. You got to integrate it. So that goes on for a year. It's 12 months. I lead you through it. And then I also have a team of accountability people that help you as small groups stay accountable. Super powerful. It's community. It's connection. It's courageous. So it builds resilience. That is the big, like, if you're like, that's it, I'm doing it, that's what you do. And that starts in January. A way to just be fed and get little nuggets is I do live streams every day at 1 o'clock on Facebook.
Awesome.
And every day we talk about one way that today you can do something. And it's just, it's information. It's not integration. It's information. But it can be enough to kind of help you. It's like a cup of coffee. And you'll learn more about what I teach. You'll learn more about me. You'll decide if something like a course that I'm giving or a retreat that I'm doing is for you. That's a really great way. And then obviously Instagram and all of those other things if you just want super short nuggets. But there's plenty out there. And really get yourself into an intenSati class. If you want to try intenSati, go to patriciamoreno.com. Have a lot of classes that you can do online, and you can teach intenSati even. So if you want to bring it, if you're a coach, if you're a speaker, if you do retreats, if you work with clients and you want to learn how do we integrate this and you want to give it to people, become an intenSati leader.
Awesome. And we'll have all that in the show notes as well. I'll put all
Great.
of the links. You are such a phenomenal human being, and I'm so grateful that we've had this conversation, for your
Me
time,
too.
wisdom. You're just beautiful inside, and it shines outside.
Inside. I always say,
Inside.
if somebody tells you this, if somebody says you're beautiful, say, I'm more than beautiful.
Yes, I love it. You're definitely more than beautiful on the
Oh,
inside,
I
and it
love you.
radiates. So I love you, and
You
seriously.
too. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You have no idea how important this is for me. And I know that you've done so much work and you do such great work in helping people. And I just want to congratulate you. I feel like you're on my team. We're on the same team doing the same work. And I think it's so important. So thank you. And thank you for introducing me to your audience.
Oh my goodness. My pleasure and honor. I adore you. Thank you.
I adore you.